The phone didn't ring. It didn't chirp or sing a happy little melody. It just buzzed against the hard laminate of my desk, a dull, angry vibration that rattled the plastic casing of my stapler. That sound, that friction of plastic on wood, is the sound of my life detonating. I was halfway through a turkey sandwich. It was dry. I remember that distinctly. The bread was stale, pasting to the roof of my mouth, and the office air conditioner was humming that low, white noise drone that usually helps me focus. But when the screen lit up, the office vanished. The gray cubicle walls, the spreadsheet on my monitor, the taste of the turkey. It all evaporated, leaving me alone in a cold, silent tunnel with nothing but a text message glowing in blue. "Hey sis, big news. I'm finally doing it. I'm quitting this alone tomorrow. Derek and I decided I need time to find myself. You'll take care of us while I figure things out, right? We can move in next weekend." I stared at the words. I didn't blink. I could feel the blood pressure rising in my ears, a rhythmic whoosh, whoosh, whoosh that matched the frantic beating of my heart. It wasn't a sudden spike of anger. It was a slow, sickening tide of familiarity. It was the physical sensation of a trap snapping shut. Kayla, 31 years old, my baby sister, the golden child who had never been told no without a consolation prize. And Derek, her partner, a man whose ambition was limited to leveling up in video games and occasionally updating a graphic design portfolio that hadn't seen a paying client in 6 months. They were grown adults. They were they were telling me that they were moving into my sanctuary. They were informing me that my salary, my space, and my sanity were now communal property. I set the sandwich down. My hands were trembling, not a little flutter, but a violent shake that made my fingers look like they belonged to someone else. I watched my own thumbs hover over the glass screen. I typed 3 words. "That's not on me." I watched the screen. The 3 little dots appeared immediately. They danced, then they vanished, then they danced again. The reply came through like a slap.
"What do you mean? We are family. This is what family does." I didn't reply. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone across the room, even though the urge was hot and bright in my chest. Instead, I stood up. The motion felt mechanical, like I was piloting a robot. I walked out of my cubicle, down the long, gray-carpeted hallway, past the break room where the coffee pot was hissing, and straight to the corner office. I didn't knock. I just stood in the doorway. Elaine, my manager, looked up, her glasses sliding down her nose. "Is the Singapore position still open?" I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Flat, hollow, devoid of the panic that was eating me alive from the inside out. Elaine blinked. "The 4-year contract? Lauren, you said you couldn't possibly move internationally. You said your family needed you." I changed my mind. "I want it. I'll sign today." 7 hours later, the sun was setting over the parking lot, casting long, bruised purple shadows across the asphalt. I was sitting in my car, the engine cold. The electronic tablet was in my lap. The contract was a dense, terrifying document full of relocation clauses, non-competes, and visa requirements. It was a commitment to uproot my entire existence. I signed it. At 6:37 p.m., I pressed submit. At 6:45 p.m., the phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a text. It was a voicemail notification. Mom. I held the phone to my ear. I can still hear the wet, ragged sound of her breathing before she even spoke. "Lauren Marie Richardson, your sister just called me sobbing. She said you refused to help her when she needs you most. How could you be so selfish? She is family. We take care of family. Call me immediately." Selfish. The word hung in the stale air of the car. It smelled like old upholstery and the faint, lingering scent of my morning coffee. Selfish. That word had been the soundtrack of my life for 16 years. It was the weapon they used to carve pieces off of me, one by one, until I was small enough to fit into the box they had built. But something in the mechanism of my heart had broken. Or maybe it had finally been fixed. I dialed Mom back. "Lauren, thank God," she breathed, her voice tight with that specific blend of anxiety and command she had perfected. "Listen, Kayla is really struggling right now."
"Mom," I cut her off. "I'm moving to Singapore on Monday." The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. It wasn't just quiet, it was a vacuum. I could hear the static of the connection, the faint ghost of a satellite delay. "You are what?" "I accepted a job transfer," I said. "I won't be able to help Kayla because I will be living on the other side of the world." "You can't be serious," she whispered. Then her voice hardened, turning into the steel trap I knew so well. "You can't just leave your family when we need you. This is because of Kayla's text, isn't it? You're being petty. You're being spiteful." "You want to know what's petty, Mom? Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you about the last 16 years. "Lauren, no!" I snapped. The force of my own voice startled me. "When Dad died, I was 18. I closed my eyes and suddenly I wasn't in the parking lot anymore. I was back in the kitchen. The smell of burnt toast and Dad's Folgers coffee. He was reading the paper. He looked up, grinned, that crooked grin that made his eyes crinkle, and asked if I was ready for my history presentation. I told him yes. He told me he was proud of me. 25 minutes later, Mom screamed. It wasn't a scream of fear. It was a scream of finality. A heart attack. Brutal, abrupt, stealing the only person in that house who actually saw me. The funeral was a blur of black fabric and suffocating lilies. I stood in a dress borrowed from a friend because I didn't own anything black. I stood there shaking hands, hundreds of hands, pressing flesh that felt cold and dry. I accepted condolences. I nodded. I was a statue. Kayla? Kayla couldn't even finish the service. She had a panic attack in the front pew. Mom had to drag her out, cooing to her, holding her, whispering that it would be okay. I sat alone on that hard wooden bench, listening to a preacher talk about a man I would never see again, while my mother comforted my sister outside. That was the moment the contract was written, though I didn't know it then. After Dad died, everything changed. I told the phone, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Kayla got therapy. Kayla got to stay home from school. Kayla got your constant supervision. Do you know what I got? I got expectations. "You were so strong, Lauren," Mom said, her voice trembling. "I needed you to be strong."
"I didn't get to fall apart," I yelled. "I had to keep my grades up for scholarships because we couldn't afford college. I worked 18 hours a week at the grocery store to buy groceries for us while Kayla focused on her recovery. And when I got into UCLA on a full ride, you cried. And they weren't happy tears. You asked me how I could leave you." I remembered that day. The heavy, suffocating guilt. Kayla throwing a vase across the living room, screaming that I was abandoning her. Mom suggesting community college so I could be close to home. "I went anyway," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "It was the first selfish thing I ever did, and you made me pay for it every single day." The list of debts scrolled through my mind like a receipt that never ended. The months I ate instant ramen so I could wire money for Kayla's emergencies. The time I paid her car insurance and then had to borrow money from my friend Jenna to fix my own alternator. The time Kayla moved in with a boyfriend, got cheated on, and I spent my entire savings, every single dime, to help her move back out. "Last Christmas," I said, the memory tasting like ash,
I spent $900 on gifts for you guys. I flew home, I bought Kayla that professional makeup kit she begged for, and do you know what she gave me? An $18 candle from Target. It still had the clearance sticker on the bottom. It smelled like holiday cheer and dust. I found it in my suitcase later. Lauren, it's the thought that counts. No, Mom, it's not the thought. It's the value. You taught me that my value comes from what I can provide. Dad taught me I was worth something just by being me. You taught me I was only worth what I could give to you. That is not fair. Your father would be so disappointed in you right now. That was the line. That was the nuclear option. She pushed the button, expecting the explosion to destroy me, but it didn't. It cleared the smoke. No, Mom, I said, and I felt a strange, cold calm wash over me. Dad would be proud that I'm finally putting myself first. I hung up. The next 4 days were a blur of cardboard boxes and packing tape. The sound of tape ripping, rip, became the rhythm of my liberation. Kayla called 19 times. I didn't answer. She left voicemails that swung wildly from weeping desperation to venomous rage. "I'm scared, Lauren. Please just talk to me," followed an hour later by, "You're a cold-hearted bitch. I hope you know that." Then came the flying monkeys, the texts from cousins I hadn't seen in a decade. "Family sticks together. How can you do this to Kayla?" I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just pressed block, 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 block. It was incredibly satisfying, like shutting 1,000 tiny doors on a howling wind. But the real kicker came Monday morning. I was loading the last suitcase into my car. The apartment was empty, echoing. My phone rang. An unknown number. "Darren, it's Derek." Kayla's boyfriend. The gamer. The freelancer who didn't freelance. "What do you want, Derek?" "Listen," he said, his voice dripping with unearned familiarity. "I know things are tense, but you have to understand. Kayla's really upset. We were counting on you." I stopped, my hand on the trunk latch. "You were counting on me? Funding your girlfriend's unemployment while she finds herself? Do you realize how insane that sounds?" "It's not like that," he stammered. "She just needs time and, well, my parents said they'd cut me off if she moved back in with me, so we don't have anywhere to go." "So your strategy," I said, marveling at the audacity, "was to make me responsible for both of you, because I'm the one with the job?" "Well, yeah. You don't have kids, you make good money, it wouldn't have been that hard for you." I laughed. I actually laughed. It was a dark, incredulous sound. "This conversation is over. Don't call me again." I blocked him. Then I got on a plane. The flight to Singapore was 18 hours of purgatory, but it was the best sleep I'd had in a decade. When I woke up, the world had changed. Singapore hit me like a physical wall. The humidity was thick, warm, and smelled of tropical rain and exhaust. But it was new. Everything was new. The corporate apartment was small, sleek, and silent. I stood on the balcony that first morning, watching the sunrise over Marina Bay. The city looked like science fiction. Towers of glass and steel, vertical gardens, lights blinking into existence. I waited for the guilt to crush me. I waited for the crushing weight of homesickness, but it didn't come. Instead, I felt lighter, like gravity had loosened its grip. I threw myself into work. My boss, Lydia, was a terrifyingly brilliant woman from Taiwan who saw right through me. 2 weeks in, she found me at my desk at 7 p.m. "Go home, Lauren," she said, leaning against my doorframe. "I'm just finishing the Hong Kong analysis." "You are hiding," she said. She didn't say it unkindly. "You are running.
That is fine, but you are in a new country. If you spend all your time in this box, you might as well be back in California. Go. Eat something spicy. Get lost. So I did. I started saying yes to things. My coworker Evan invited me to a board game night. I went. I met Renee, a sharp-witted woman who worked in finance and had a mother just as domineering as mine. We bonded over wine and trauma, laughing until our sides ached. I joined a rock climbing gym. I learned to navigate the MRT. I ate chili crab that burned my lips and made my eyes water. I checked my phone less and less. When I finally unblocked Mom and Kayla 7 weeks later, the flood of messages was a fascinating anthropological study. Anger, bargaining, guilt, silence. I sent one message to the family group chat. I am settled in Singapore. I am happy. I need everyone to understand that I am no longer available for financial support. I love you, but I am prioritizing my life now. The response was mixed, but for the first time, I didn't care. I wasn't asking for permission. 4 months later, the email arrived. Not a text, an email from Kayla. I sat in a cafe in Tiong Bahru, sipping an iced coffee, staring at the screen. Liv, I don't know what to say. I was so angry, but Molly told me I was treating you like an ATM. I got defensive, but then Derek and I broke up because he refused to get a job, and I realized I was dating someone who wanted to coast on other people's money just like I was doing to you. I'm sorry. I got a job. I'm not asking for money. I just wanted you to know. I read it 5 times. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. The real test, though, came 2 years later. Mom called on a Tuesday. I knew instantly. Her voice was small, trembling. It's breast cancer, Lauren. Stage 3. The world stopped. The anger, the boundaries, the ocean between us, it all compressed into a single point of fear. I'm here, Mom, I said, and I meant it. I can't fly home right now, but I'm here. That year was the hardest and the best of my life. I couldn't be there to drive her to chemo, so Kayla did it. Kayla, the girl who couldn't handle a funeral, stepped up. She managed the meds, she drove the car, she sat in the waiting rooms. She sent me pictures of them wearing ridiculous wigs. When I finally flew home for her last radiation treatment, the house felt different. Smaller, but warmer. On my last night, Mom and I sat in the backyard. The California air was cool and dry, so different from the sticky heat of Singapore. I almost destroyed us, she said quietly, looking at a photo album. When you left, I was so angry. I thought you abandoned us. But watching Kayla step up these past few months, if you had stayed, she never would have done that. I was enabling her. I was crippling both of you. I reached out and took her hand. It felt frail, but her grip was strong. I didn't leave to hurt you, Mom, I said. I left to save myself. I know, she whispered, and you saved her, too. I went back to Singapore the next day. I signed a permanent contract. I became a regional director. I bought my own apartment, one with a view of the ocean. Kayla visited me last year. She paid for her own ticket. She has her own salon now, a small place she bought with her own savings.
We stood on the roof of the Marina Bay Sands, looking out at the city lights, glittering like diamonds scattered on black velvet. "I get why you stayed," she said, leaning against the railing. "You're different here. You're lighter." "I am," I said. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from my boyfriend Logan asking if I wanted Thai food for dinner, a message from Renee about rock climbing on Saturday. A life full of choices, a life full of yeses. I looked at my sister, then out at the horizon where the sea met the sky. They called me selfish, they called me a runaway, but the truth is, you cannot save people who will not save themselves. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do, for them and for you, is to walk away. I didn't abandon my family. I just finally stopped abandoning myself. And let me tell you, freedom? It smells like tropical rain, and it feels like peace.